With the governor's decision there, and Doug Collins, as you know, is running for the Senate. I want to bring in Bill Barr because there's a lot of reaction to what he said on the Hugh Hewitt show, talking about some of these restrictions, likened some of it to house arrest for American citizens, saying he is willing to further look into some of these restrictions. He said this: these are unprecedented burdens on civil liberties right now. You know, the idea that you have to stay in your house is disturbingly close to house arrest. I'm not saying it wasn't justified. I'm not saying in some places it might still be justified, but it is very onerous, as is shutting down your livelihood. So what about him looking into possibly some of these restrictions and shutdowns infringing on our federal constitutional rights, Chris?
I think it's not going to happen. I think it's talk on a talk radio show. And I wonder about the Attorney General engaging in that kind of talk. It's legally suspect, because if you look at when the president talked about, I have total authority to reopen the states, a lot of constitutional scholars on both the left and right noted that under the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, the states have all the powers that are not specifically given to the federal government. This is not one that's given to the federal government, and states have police powers. They close things down for public safety all the time. So there's a real legal issue there. There's also a health issue, because you look at what the president's own guidelines say, and they talk about a very specific, very gradual approach to reopening. That's why Governor Kemp in Georgia has run afoul. The idea that the Attorney General of the United States is going to get involved with a lawsuit in an individual state that perhaps goes against the president's guidelines and goes against the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, I don't see that happening.
Very interesting. Meanwhile, the president himself is actually talking about extending some of these social distancing guidelines on into the summer, Chris. Here's the president.
Well, we may, and we may go beyond that. We're going to have to see where it is. I think people are